Good afternoon and welcome to July's Books and Beverages. It's lovely to see such a big audience in here. Aren't we lucky? Isn't this just a marvellous place to be able to do this? It's a fantastic tent. I see that we have people who regularly come to our Books and Beverages in the library, which we do once a month on the first Friday of the month. But I see we also have some new people here. So I hope I can encourage some of you to come to our regular sessions in the library. It will be lovely to see you. I'm very pleased today to welcome Natalie Horner and Kate Kenzie, who are going to talk about their books. The genre of their books is Romantasy. Now, I wasn't sure that I really knew a lot about Romantasy. But I read the books and I realised that, yes, I have read one or two other books on a similar theme. You may all know what it's about. But just in case you don't, I'm going to ask each of them to just give their view of what Romantasy is. And then they will read a short piece from each of the books just to give you a flavour of what the books are about. And then we'll continue in conversation. So, Natalie, would you like to start us off, please?
Am I standing?
You are, you're standing there.
I'm such a new to all this room. Hi, everybody, I'm Nat, and I am the author of Wings, which is book one in the Revelations prophecy. So, Romantasy to me, I started writing in 2009, and when I started writing this, it was actually known as fantasy. And as the years have gone on, the genres have very much evolved as romance and fantasy have come together to create Romantasy. And so for me, Romantasy is love, yearning, friends to lovers, enemies to lovers, all tied into a fantasy style setting. And that is what I've tried to do in my first book. So I'll read you a little extract from chapter 5, which is called Who Are You? Now, bearing in mind my book's set in Manhattan, but I won't do an American accent today. I'll stick with me own. He stood in the doorway like a god. Everyone turned to stare at his beauty, myself included. He was dressed head to toe with crisp white linen, brave considering what the air outside was like here. I was surprised how glad I felt to see him again, though I knew nothing about him. Get a grip. He looked around the room and his eyes locked on me. I swung around, embarrassed that I'd been caught staring, and continued cleaning the tables. My whole body was on fire. I could feel him looking at me, but I didn't dare turn. A strange quiet descended upon the crowd. I knew all too well the thoughts surfing along the airways. Who is he? Never seen him around here before. Where does he come from? All the usual small-town comments. Is it safe to see him well? You think one of the kids might spill their soda on me? Up close, he was even better than I remembered. There wasn't a freckle or a flaw on his face. His skin was smooth, almost marble-like. I had the urge to reach out and touch him. I had never seen eyes so blue in my entire life. I lost myself in them. So, is it okay to sit here? What? Can I sit here? Is this out of the swash zone? I must have looked confused as it continued. I was just saying, will I be out of the way, you know? You know what? Never mind. My face grew hot as he sat with an air of grace at the table next to me. I cleared a few losses, not knowing what to do or if I should say something else to him. Nice costume, he said, tugging at my tail. I jerked in surprise. A glass fell from my tray, but before it hit the floor, the mystery man caught it. He handed it back to me. Thanks, I said. That's some skill. I glanced towards the dance floor and saw Friday gawking at us. Good reflexes. Didn't mean to startle you. Well, forget about it. My voice shook. So what newcomers? I asked, trying to act cool. Can't you tell? I felt my face redden. A ghost? No, he chuckled and I felt stupid. I'm an angel. think you forgot your wings and halo, dude. I joked, trying to pull myself together. I only get them out on special occasions, he mocked, winking at me. And Halloween isn't one of them? No, I hate this Americanism. He looked around the bar. He noticed Friday on the dance floor, and I knew that my chance, if I had one at all, was up. Every guy fell for Friday. I was Mrs. Potato Head compared to her. Are you American? Wait, Canadian, I guess. Nope. You sound American. You from out of town? Nope. He said nothing. Is it some kind of secret? I don't know why I pushed for an answer. His evasiveness bothered me. I wanted to know more. If this had been any other guy, I would have given up. I wasn't one to chase. This guy was different. I've been around. Where? He looked at me. Everywhere. And his eyes sparkled.
I don't know if that was funny.
Thank you, Natalie. That was great. Thank you. Kate, would you like to give us a flavour?
Hiya, hope you can hear me. I'm Kate and I'm the author of A Blend of Magic, which is set in Whitby. Romantasy for me is a blend of all the tropes from romance, like your happy ever afters, and fantasy world building. So it can be high fantasy where you've got a whole new world that the author has created, or you've got low fantasy, which is like mine, which is set in real life, but it has uncanny elements to it. Okay, and this is in chapter 1, so near the beginning. And it's about Willow, and she can't sleep, and she's visiting Whitby on a holiday. Willow always struggled to sleep, or rather stay asleep. When darkness fell, even with a burning nightlight, sleep would evade her, and when her eyes finally closed, low-crushing panic would wake her. Often snatches of dreams fled before she had chance to analyse them, leaving behind anxiety in her knees. Other times, they were filled with memories she'd rather forget. She tried herbal concoctions, spells, even hypnosis, before she succumbed to seeking help with conventional medication. But that led to being trapped in her fear, unable to escape, paralysed until the drugs wore off. Never again, she decided. So she ran. She sprinted through the night until exhaustion took hold, and she collapsed into a dreamless sleep. Last night was no exception. Despite her hopes, the sea air and cosy room in Mrs. Ramsey's B&B would act as a sleeping draught and lull her into a deep sleep. Willow found herself on the cliff top, bending over her burning thighs, fatigued from climbing the famous 199 stone stairs, which wound up the hillside to St. Mary's Church in Whitby Abbey. She forced herself to sink her breathing, with the waves crashing on the rocks below. Inhale. The salty fishy air shocked from anxiety's silence, and a numbing relief from the continual scream left over from her disturbing nightmares. Exhale. Her fears and the crushing panic were released into the brisk North Sea air. Her heart rate slowed, and her body calmed. She uncurled and stretched, allowing herself to look down at the slumbering town and harbour. Shrouded in the darkness, the rambling streets she had left were quiet, a contrast to the hustle and bustle she experienced earlier in the day. The occasional light shone from houses, and Willow wondered what the residents' stories were. Were they awake soothing the crying baby, burning the midnight oil for a deadline, or were they like her, haunted by dreams she couldn't escape from? The cool breeze hit her face, urging her to unclasp the clip holding her hair. With her face tilted to the heavy moon, she stretched and felt alive, revitalised after a long hibernation. If Louise could see her now, she would burst out laughing, encouraging Willow to savour the moment and hold it tight, like she did the last time they went there, on this cliff. A nudge and a pressure against her legs forced her to look down. A black cat wound itself around her. Its intense amber eyes, glistening in the moonlight, stared at her. She bent to stroke the silky feline, but it disappeared, only to materialise meters later on the wall. As she approached, it darted away towards the steps, urging her to follow. It led her past the shops and the cottages of Church Street, through the lanes and shortcuts she recognised and some she didn't. Disorientated, she saw the cat once more in the entrance of a shadowy ginnel. Instinct took over common sense, and she entered the damp, dark alley. Moonlight led the way as it shone on the courtyard ahead, revealing the derelict shop. The cat waited on the step before it faded away. Willow stood enchanted, not by the store with its twin bay windows, but by a tingle of excitement bubbling inside her, and the potential she could see. For the first time, the wanderlust that had seen her travel and live from a backpack vanished, and were replaced with the desire to stay and have a place to call home. The battered for sale sign, popped up against the wall, clinched the idea. Now, with the sun straining to filter through the clouds, the witch and the cat met again. They acknowledged each other, and Willow whispered her thanks before it melted away. Witch's Yard was where she belonged. It was a perfect place to put down roots, the perfect place to hide.
So Natalie, can I start by asking you, why Manhattan?
Well, I had the idea for a woman who meets a guardian angel while we were on holiday, and I just had this vision of the Statue of Liberty, and that's all I had when I first started. I just knew that the Statue of Liberty was going to play a part somewhere in this book, and I just decided that actually Manhattan is always considered, the city of dreams, the Big Apple. Everybody wants to make it big there, etc. And Charlie's home life, her background, she is living this claustrophobic life, and Manhattan is like an escape, a dream for her. And the Statue of Liberty actually comes into play as she meets the guardian angel, and they take a little visit there, but I'm not going to say too much. And it just sort of became like a bit of a promised land as her story progresses. So I just wanted to set it there, as well as setting it in the modern world. I wanted it to feel as though magic is right outside your front door, rather than in as you mentioned, the high fantasy where it's the world building. It's something that's completely different realms, different worlds, etc. I wanted this to feel relatable as well, and I mean everybody's seen New York and Manhattan at some point, so it also creates that little bit of imagination as well.
Thank you. And Whitby, so different from Manhattan.
Just a bit.
So what led you to Whitby then, Kate?
I fell in love with Whitby as soon as I saw it. We actually came to our honeymoon on Whitby many years ago, and I found it was just a magical place with all the ginnels and the roads. I could just imagine this tiny enchanted shop hiding down the ginnel that nobody else sees unless it lets you. So it was the atmosphere, and also you've got the goth weekend, which kind of witches and everything. So
Absolutely. Yes. Natalie, Charlie's home life seems to be a disaster, but it does feel very modern in its setting. Your writing is very modern. I found it very relatable to young people and teenagers today. So how did you find it to introduce a guardian angel into that modern setting, that modern language?
The answer is I don't know. I was raised Catholic, and I've always sounds weird when I say I've always liked the story of like God versus Lucifer, but it's a story that's always intrigued me, and it has been, told, whether it's in stories like Dante, film, etc. And because I'd had this idea about a guardian angel, as I was writing it, it kind of manifested into this idea of actually this eternal battle that is continuously going on. I wanted to bring it back down to the real world and have this woman unknowingly be in the centre of it all, and being also the key to potentially ending it all. So I kind of went with the guardian angel, and at the time of writing there were a lot of other novels out there as well that were very much angel centred, such as I don't know if anybody had heard of Cassandra Clare. She's written the Mortal Instruments series, really, really popular, and that's all about the film. And there were a lot of supernatural TV shows as well at the same time. So I found that I was able to use quite a lot of ideas and inspiration from that to try and make this as modern and relatable as possible without sounding preachy, as though I was talking about the Bible and talking about religious aspects. And I think as the feedback that I kind of got from it is that people found that it was interesting enough without feeling as though they were being told what religion was and the characters that are central to it. So hopefully that came across.
Yes, I think it did. And also the fact that Charlie and Friday are very typical. Well, they're not teenage, they're early 20s, aren't they? But they're of an age where their behaviour reflects that of many young people of their age.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I started writing it, as I say, in 2009, so I weren't too far off the age of Charlie and Friday. So I think I put a little bit of myself and a little bit of my mischievous, side in there as I was writing them.
It comes across very well as fitting into that age group, definitely it does. Now Willow is very different, Kenzie, isn't she? Completely different. But she's a good witch.
She is.
Isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a good witch. I was fascinated by the idea of the tea concoctions within it. Was there a lot of research into that? I mean, if we had one of her teas, would it work on us as it worked on her clients?
Probably not. I did drink an awful lot of tea, lots of different flavours, and I kind of used my book as an excuse to try everything. Whittards was great for this. But I also did some research on tea, especially in some scenes in the book. She thinks about her history, where she actually went to China and learned from the Chinese of how to do the actual tea rituals, which does play a part in this. But every time a customer comes into the shop, they get a sachet of tea that she chooses specifically, and that is to help them with whatever they actually need and not what they actually want. So yeah, I did do some research,
Yes.
but maybe not as much as I should.
It's quite a good excuse to try all the different teas, I think,
Definitely.
isn't it? Natalie, the relationship between Charlie and Michael is quite fraught. There's definitely a very sexual attraction there, isn't there?
Yes.
Were you trying to make Michael appear just like any other regular guy, although he clearly isn't? He's almost a bit too goody two shoes in some stages, isn't he? Or do you think people will guess the identity fairly early on?
I think when we first meet Michael, he's a little bit aloof, but I think if you are a fantasy reader or a romantasy reader, you kind of get that impression straight away that there's a character here. But I'm not too sure about him. I think there's going to be more of him, etc., etc. So for me, I wanted that first moment to be like a sit up, oh, here could be our main male character, and then gradually bring him in further and further, so the readers slowly getting into his character and them two, Charlie and Michael, together as a pairing. So I think, to be honest, I didn't set out for him to be a surprise as such, but to just make the reader aware that somebody's coming, we need to keep an eye on him, I think he's going to be back. And hopefully that would keep people reading.
Yes, I think that certainly does come across. I think it does. Yes, it does. Kate, as with Nicola's book, we haven't touched on this yet, really. Natalie's book. There's an amount of violence around Willow, isn't there?
Yeah, there is a threat in the background.
There is, and there's a very threatening feeling, I think, in some of the letters and the words that he used.
Yeah.
You're trying to heighten that tension, but how easy did you find that to write under the guise of the fact that this is a rather easygoing book that's got rather nice things in it, but you've got that threat underneath? What did you hope to bring about with the threat of the violence?
I hope the violence wasn't too much. I did try and keep it to a minimum, but I always knew that Willow was hiding from something, that there was a reason why she wanted a shop down a Ginnell that only people that were invited could go. She very rarely went out of her little bubble. But with the arrival of Nate coming into the village at Christmas, I knew that she needed to face her past to actually move forward. So with the letters that arrived, because people actually discover that she's actually there, I kind of wanted her to actually have to face her past. And so it was just a technique to say, the past is knocking now, she can't hide from it. It was actually in her letterbox. So yeah.
Yes, now then, Natalie, the violence is really quite graphic in yours in places, isn't it?
Yes, I don't hold back.
No, you don't. Again, how easy was that to write? Do you find that difficult to write, or?
No, I don't know if it's a testament to my mentality, maybe, but I found writing the violent scenes. So what I try and do when I am writing sometimes is write as though I'm watching a movie, and I try and write the scenes as cinematic as possible to get those little details in, especially when it comes to scenes of violence and scenes where there's actually conflict and fighting, so it comes across on the page so the reader can picture it in the mind. So I just use pretending that I'm watching it on film to be able to write it down on the page, and I find that helps, and I find it quite easy. I sort of set out knowing what I wanted out of the story. It's angels versus demons. There is going to be elements where there are battles, there are fights, etc. So I knew I had to get them in at some point, and find that Charlie's actually mixed up in that. So yeah, I just sort of played it out as a scene in my head and then wrote it down as it played along, and I found that actually helped the process quite a lot.
Yes, thank you. Did you spend a lot of time in Whitby, walking around Whitby then, Kate? Because the mysticism, I assume you found Whitby contributed towards that. So did you spend a lot of time walking around looking at places?
I did. It was a good excuse to go. Yes, I did as much as I could, but I also looked into the folklore and the legends of Whitby and the history of it. Even before I wrote this book, I started a manuscript that was based in Whitby in like the 1600s. So I was always interested in folklore. And so yeah, I added some mysticism. And I also, there's lots of haunted places in Whitby, the pubs and things. And I also discovered that there was a sighting in 1859 of a ghost black cat, which was the inspiration for my black cat. So yeah.
Yes, you've given both Willow and Amber a familiar, which is a very witchy thing.
Yeah.
Would you like to just talk a little bit about familiars and why a ferret?
Every witch needs a familiar. They tend to be part of the witch themselves. They can go off and do things for the witch. They can communicate, and it's just a companion. My book, you've got Vincent, who's a Maine Coon. I chose him specifically because I wanted a cat, and I can't have a cat because I've got two Jack Russells and they wouldn't get along. So I gave my character the cat that I always want. But there was also a ferret called Beetle, and that's the youngest witch's familiar. And at the time when I was writing this, we actually have a rescue ferret, and Beetle is based on him and all the antics that he does, because they're perfect familiars because they can sneak around and hide and steal things.
Yes, I was quite intrigued by the idea of a ferret. And then when I thought about it, I thought, yeah, they're very lithe creatures, aren't they? They really can sneak and hide and get into places. Yes,
Very mischievous.
Yes, they are. Now, without giving out any spoilers, the end of your book, Natalie, does this mean that you may be writing a sequel to this?
The ending causes me a lot of grief. I second-guessed myself about the ending, actually, because I had quite a lot of messages of how dare you leave the end of the book the way you have, and I was like, I'm sorry, not sorry. But yeah, this is the first of a series. So I have just finished writing draft 2 of book 2, which is called Possess. And I'm hoping and praying, I keep saying to the gods that I'm like, it will be out in November. But I am currently working on book 2, so it'll be book 2 of 4. And then I have a novella in the works, and then somebody gave me the idea of writing a prequel, just because I'm not busy enough. They were like, I think you need to do a prequel about the parents, and I'm like, oh no. And as I sat, I was like, oh, an idea has formed, and that's it. So I guess I'm writing a prequel as well. But yes, it is a series. So, but the ending is a subject.
Yes, it was very intriguing, I must say. When I read the ending, I thought, oh, where did that come from? So, yeah.
It did its job.
It clearly did. Yes, it clearly did. Despite the fact that you've got witches and familiars and spells and ghosts, you've got some very modern themes in there as well, Kate, haven't you? You've got you've got dads and daughters falling out. You've got tattooists. Just talk a little bit about writing some of that into a romantasy, please.
Okay, I always wanted it to be set in the real world, and even if you're a witch or you're living with ghosts, you're also going to have the problems everyone has. So the youngest witch falls out with her dad. They've got issues with grief that they've got to deal with, and they've been dealing with it in their separate ways, and they need to reconcile. You've got Willow, who has had domestic violence in her past that she's also got to deal with. So even if in a fantasy setting, everyday problems appear. So I wanted to include those and then add the magic after. So yeah.
Yes. I mean, it certainly did come across as a book about now, despite the fact that you've got it's set in a fantasy world, but it definitely came across as something that was of the real world too.
Yeah.
It did. Yeah, she touched a little bit on Charlie's home life there. That was quite horrendous, really, wasn't it? Why did you give her a home life like that?
I think when you are writing fantasy, or any story really, there has to be a moment where a character has to overcome some hurdle in their life. And as the story goes on, you without giving away the spoilers, you do realise why her home life has been full of abuse, and her father is abusive towards her and her mother. And it kind of sets the scene for the rest of the book and Charlie's journey in itself. And also it gives Charlie the personality. She finds the strength, she finds the will to keep going for not only herself but her mother. Her brother left when she was younger, and it kind of was left to her and on her shoulders to sort of, carry a family and look after her mum. So it built this resilience within her that I wanted her to carry with her when she gets older. I think sometimes there are books where a lot of the times it is damsel in distress, and I wanted to approach it a little bit different and have a female main character who has a bit of something about her. She's got a bit of gusto, she's got a bit of fight in her, as well as the vulnerabilities. She is only human. So I wanted to put that in there as a catalyst, really, to the whole series as it develops. And you will see that in book 2. Sadly, it sort of carries over without giving too much away.
Now, Amber is I think, quite a typical teenager. Did you have anyone to draw on for that, Kate, or was that purely from memory or from imagination?
I think most of it was memory and imagination. I do have a daughter, and she was a teenager at the time, but they were nothing like Amber. Amber was actually a character that I wrote about when I was a teenager. She was in my first ever story that I wrote, and she was the protagonist, so I knew her quite well. And so when she arrived in this one, it was like, yeah, I know what you're going to do.
Is she certainly a little meddler at times, isn't she?
She is. She isn't someone that does what she's told.
No, well, teenagers are like that, aren't they? I wonder if anyone in the audience has got a question they would like to ask. Yes.
I'd like to ask about, in some respect, the mechanics of writing. Did you know when you start what the last paragraph was going to be?
The question is about the mechanics of writing. Do the authors know when they start the book what the end of the book is going to be? Natalie?
I know what the end of this series is going to be. However, I'm not a planner as such when I'm writing. I'm more of a plot pointer. So I'll have so many points that I do want to get to within the book, and then I will write to those points. I have a friend who meticulously plots out the entire book, but for me, the thing that I love the most is having a bit of a free write. And once I start writing and I get into the flow of writing, sometimes I'm not actually, it sounds crazy this, but I'm not actually aware of the room around me. It's just my brain, my fingers typing away the words and the page. And doing that, it also allows a little bit more freedom, because sometimes my characters take on like a world of themselves, and I'm like, oh, well, I wanted you to come this way, but actually you're going this way now, so that's quite interesting. So I try to be as free with it as possible, but knowing my main points that I want to get to within the book.
So, Kate, are you a planner, or do you know what's coming at the end or not?
With this book, I knew what the ending was going to be from the start. Sometimes I plan, but my characters do their own thing, a bit like Natalie's. They take over. So you think you're going one way, and they're going to go down the road and meet somebody, and they go completely the opposite way, and they go paddling in the sea. So yeah.
I hope that answers your question. Yes. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah. How important is it, do you think, to have an audience to like your character, a character? What message you relate to them?
The question is, how important is it for the reader, the audience, the reader, to like the characters?
I guess it depends if you want them to be liked. I think if you've got a villain and a reader goes, I absolutely hated that person, you're like, good. That's what I was intending. So I think as long as you're setting your characters out to be a certain way and that comes across to a reader, then you know you've hit the mark. But in saying that, sometimes hearing a different, a reader will come up and go, oh, well, actually, I thought this. I do find that quite intriguing as well. So I do accept when, if I've set out to, for example, Charlie, everybody likes her, they'll be rooting for her. But if somebody's like, actually, no, she did my head in a little bit, I like this character instead, then I'm kind of like, okay, I accept that. I think that's fair. I like hearing different readers' opinions and opening that discussion. I think that's important.
Kate, how important is it to you?
Well, I think Willow is quite likeable. There's not much about her that people would hate. Amber, on the other hand, I have had comments about her attitude. But I think it's more the case that the characters may not be likeable to the reader, but it's important for the reader to see something about the character that is relatable. So they're natural, people are complex, and you can have somebody really horrid, but there will be something about that character that makes you think, actually, I can understand that, and maybe there's a reason behind their actions, even if the reader doesn't understand them.
And don't we all want to meet Nate?
He's very nice.
Yes.
Did you manage to find a publisher, or did you self-publish?
The question is, did you manage to find a publisher, or did you self-publish?
No. Well, yes and no. So I started off trying to do the traditional publishing route. I sent my manuscripts off to agents and got some very good rejections, if you can call it that. And then, at the point of, I'm just going to give it up as a bad job. Last year, I had seen in the writing magazine, they were advertising a hybrid publisher, which is basically, they're a one-stop shop for your editing, your proofreading, etc. And they'll do your book for you, so they'll do the front cover, etc. And I thought, do you know what? I have no idea what I am doing whatsoever to try and go this fight alone, do it by myself. So I went through with Atmosphere Press as a hybrid publisher, and I really enjoyed it. Had a very good experience with them. But what it has done as well is opened me up to so much, and I've learned so much since publishing in November about being able to do it myself. And the indie author scene right now is massive, and it's really, really growing. It's growing on social media. There's lots and lots of festivals all over the country that's dedicated to indie authors. So it's one of those actually that if a traditional publisher came up to me and said, we want to take on your book, I'd probably think twice about it, maybe. It depends, I suppose, if they offered me like lots and lots of cash. Jokes. But I thought, do you know what, for my second book, I'm going to do it totally self-published by myself, and we'll see how we go. So it's opened up a massive community of indie authors, and it's a really, really exciting time actually in the bookish community. Indie authors is on the rise and here to stay, I'd say.
Kate?
Likewise, I wrote my book and started submitting it to agents and publishers. I actually spoke to a publisher about A Blend of Magic, submitted to it, and they were positive. But at the time, I didn't want to wait the 2 years that normally you have to wait for traditional publishing. I wanted it out there for personal reasons. So I went the indie route with A Blend of Magic. But from having this book out, I have actually got a publisher now and an agent, and so my next book will be through a traditional publisher.
Yay!
So,
Well done. Yes.
At what stage in your youth did you start writing?
The question is, at what age, at what stage of your life did you start writing?
I've always loved storytelling, and I've always enjoyed writing. I did English in college, and I used to write the short stories for the class, etc. And I guess serious writing, where I thought I'm going to do it, I'm going to write my book, was in 2009. I was working as a TA in a school, so when all my friends etc. were at work and it was school holidays, I were off, and I was like, this is a really good time to get some writing done. And I'd just sit at the laptop all day, every day, just writing, and it's never left me ever since. It's like, it's in my blood, it's a part of me. I could not imagine not being able to write now. I love storytelling. I love, like, fantasy and romantasy is my heart, but I write different genres as well. I write short stories, etc. Been in anthologies. I think I did one story which I actually published last year about the sycamore gap tree that was felled, and I wrote from the tree's point of view. So I do love experimenting as well. And yeah, it's just something that's never left me, and I don't think it ever will. It's just there. Writing is there.
I think it's addictive, isn't it?
Yeah, I just love being able to get lost in a story and get lost in characters and have those moments where nothing else exists outside of you and that page. And it's a bizarre feeling when you are in that moment, and your brain can't quite keep up with how, your fingers can't keep up with how fast your brain's going, because the story is just flowing, and it's magical, strange feeling.
Kate, how about you? When did you start writing?
I always loved stories. From a young age, I always read all the time. The first story I remember writing was about Victoria Plum. And I've actually got the scribbles and the illustrations of that, and I think I was about 7. But then I used to write on the school bus at secondary school, and so I wrote my first story about Amber when I was 14. But then I packed it all away when I got older, because I was very much into science, and that was what I was going to do. Until I think it was about 2010, I got ill and I was at home. I couldn't work. It was before walls were there, and so I used writing as a way to escape health and life, and I just carried on, and it is very addictive. And the community that you find when you are writing online and is amazing. Authors are so nice. They will help you any way that you can to get everybody writing. They just like sharing all their advice and stories.
Yes, I think that's very true. It's a lovely community to be part of. But I think you've also blended your science and your writing with your spells and your witches, haven't you?
I try.
Are there any more questions? Yes.
Were these the original names of the books? Were these the original titles of the books, or have you changed them as you've been writing stories?
The question is, are these the original titles of the books, or have they changed as you were writing?
Mine is. I started with Wings. The little subtitle book one, The Revelations Prophecy, I added on last year. But the story itself I completely rewrote. So it's not when I've kept all my notebooks, etc. So when I look back at what I'd originally written to now, I'm like, wow, that's changed. But yeah, I've always stuck with Wings. It's just been ingrained. So yes, I did.
Yeah, and likewise, A Blend of Magic was the first title I had. Quite early in the book, I knew that that's what it was going to be, and I think I wrote the book to fit the title.
Anyone else? Well, thank you very much for listening. Please come up and talk to the authors, come and have a look at their books. They'd be delighted to answer any other questions you might have. But please can we thank them in the traditional way. Thank you.